Welcome to Fields of Change, an audio video series brought to you by the Foundation for Agrarian Studies. In the lead up to the FAS International Conference on Agrarian Change to be held from November 6 to 9, 2025 in Trivandrum, Kerala, India, we bring you conversations with leading scholars on major themes around agrarian change, including land and labor, rural living standards, science and technology in agriculture, and the impact of climate change. Part 2 explores the various dimensions of poverty and their implications for rural standards of living in India, as explained by Professor Madhura Swaminathan. Poverty remains widely prevalent in India and across developing countries. In recent years, the trend of poverty reduction has reversed in many parts of the developing world, including rural India. In this context, how does the study of poverty become important in understanding agrarian change?
I think poverty in India and elsewhere in the world was declining for factors decades. But COVID-19 and the pandemic and lockdown and all that disruption reversed that trend. And we see this globally that actually poverty, incidence of poverty started rising. Having said that, I think it's well known that the highest proportion of the poor in India live in rural areas. So both of the total poor, they're more poor in rural than urban areas. And the incidence of poverty, that is of the rural population, a higher proportion of poor. So if we want to resolve the problem of rural poverty, which is in a way the biggest contributor to poverty in India and in many Asian and African countries, then we have to resolve the agrarian question. So agrarian change is going to be central to the reduction of rural poverty, which in turn is the most important component of poverty in India.
What are the major debates on methods of measuring poverty and the recent discussions on poverty measurement and trends in poverty in India?
There's a huge body of literature on poverty and measurement of poverty. So I'll focus only on a few things. One is that in India, unlike in many other countries, poverty in terms of income is not measured actually by income but by consumption expenditure or household expenditure. Now, household expenditure is often higher than income for the poor because they're borrowing to spend and they have to spend on, say, health. Whereas the rich can't consume all their income and are saving. So when we look at consumption expenditure, it's very important to note that we may find a family that is spending the amount that we think is adequate for food and health and basic housing and so on, but that may be on borrowed money. So I think this is the first very crucial problem to remember, that India's estimates of poverty are based on consumption. Nevertheless, we've had regular surveys on consumption expenditure and poverty has been estimated. But last 2 decades shows a little different situation. First, the last official poverty line in India dates back to 2009, which is the Tendulkar poverty line. And there is not been updated, nor there is any official notification on what is the poverty line in India. So for a country so big with so many poor people, we have complete official silence on what is the poverty line. Second, even in terms of data, for about a decade, from 2011 till 2022-23, we didn't have any data on consumption expenditure. Now we have some data, very recent data from the last 2 years. And these data, unfortunately, are not comparable with the earlier surveys. There are lots of definitional changes, conceptual changes, and so on. And The estimates based on the new survey range to anything between 10 and 25% of households. Again, I want to underline there's official silence even with these new data. So I think we have a very big problem of rural poverty, but we have very little to go by in terms of measurement.
Thank you for listening. We'll be diving into more facets of poverty and the standard of living in rural India over the next few days.